Hello and welcome to the Brown Fox podcast. I'm Nathan, the video production assistant here at Brown Fox Media. I'm sitting across Joseph Bobadilla.
Hello again, Nathan.
Yes, it's good to be here. How are you?
I've been really good. I've been looking forward to doing take 2 of podcast 2. We had some technical difficulties, but we're back on board.
That's all good. Yeah, no, I've been looking forward to this time over the past 2 weeks. I'm like, trying to formulate questions, trying to bring everything in. But it's definitely good to have this time set aside.
Definitely.
Before we get kicked into it, I want to introduce a little segment to these podcasts. Dad joke of the fortnight.
This is our point of difference.
Yeah.
Love it.
Why did the hipster fall? Why did the hipster drown in the lake? Sorry.
Okay. Why?
Because he was skating before it was cool. It's good. It's funny every time. Okay.
Still funny.
I've
heard that one so many times. Funny.
Yeah. I told you before. So.
All right, guys, please don't tune out, even though it's going to be a regular segment.
It's all good. Okay. So today what we're going to be unpacking is just basically coming from a creative passion, I guess, as a person, and then wanting to bring that into something like business. So this is, I guess, we're unpacking, I guess, as yourself, a creative person, making their creative passion their business. And I guess it's not just video production, which is what we do, but a lot of people do heaps of other things like painting, ceramic making, all this sort of stuff. Like photography, which is very similar to video. But I guess just unpacking that and unpacking what that means as far as, when you're young, you don't really have you're creating because you love it, and you're not doing it necessarily to make a living from it. And it's never always, exactly about the money. Like that's never it. But just unpacking this one. So I guess starting off when talking about this, the point of discussion would be like, what are some sacrifices that you make when you go from that, like, I just enjoy doing this. Like, I do a casual job or whatever on the side, and I get money, or you have a part-time job or something like that. And what are some sacrifices you have to make in just how you do things, or perhaps what you value in your work when you make that shift from just like doing like hobbyist sort of, your passion is just like bursting everywhere, and you bring it into something that's marketable, something that's profitable.
I think firstly, it's just amazing to be able to, just off the cuff, it's just amazing to be able to see how that transition takes place. And I'm excited to actually unpack what that looks like, what that can look like, when it should and shouldn't happen. I think everyone who is considering, actually, let's pull that back. Everyone who has a creative passion, especially nowadays, will probably at some stage be presented with the idea, or at least even think about the idea of, can this become something that people might buy from me, might purchase my art, might, require my services. And I think especially when at the start, it's an exploration of your craft and you enjoy it, you love it. It's like, for me personally, that started in, I think I mentioned on the last podcast, it started in graphic design, progressed through just for the pure joy of exploring the different forms of creativity. And in that process, I think when people start to, I guess, maybe even notice that you do really well at your craft, and maybe someone might even ask you to do something for them. If you're a good photographer and you start doing it for fun, people might even ask you, especially nowadays when you can post your stuff everywhere, and they'll say, hey, you take really great photos. Do you want to come and take photos for my niece's first birthday party or something like that? I think that's when things like that start to happen, if they haven't already for you, if you haven't already gone out and investigated it yourself, I think it starts to trigger that thought. And that's literally how, I guess, I started at the very base level of considering business and creativity. Was that moment when people would start to ask me to actually do stuff for them, even if it wasn't paid. If it was just like someone inquiring to say, can you design me a logo, or can you design, I'm like, okay, so someone's asking for this.
And even if they're not paying you in money, they're paying you in like attention and like adoration. It's like, wow, so good, amazing.
And that, on that level of, hey, someone respects my craft. Someone actually thinks that there's a value in what I'm doing. And 100% if you're good at your craft and you are talented at it and you are willing to put in the effort, I think people will notice, especially nowadays, if you're not scared to put it out. So for that transition though, that point where you start to consider, can this be more than just free services or people asking me, it comes in various ways. It's just like anything. It's no science. It's not like if you do this, if you post on Instagram your work and whatnot, someone will hit you up. Someone will do that. Or at the same token, just because you're shooting a bunch of free birthday parties or something does not necessarily equate to it becoming even monetizable. Yeah, if that's a word.
Yeah.
There's a point in the process where the onus does shift to the individual as to start to investigate that process for themselves by trial and error, by learning from other people, by getting a mentor, whatever it is. For myself, it was literally trial and error. Like, okay, I have no idea what to charge when someone asked me to do a shoot for a photography shoot, when I started to do that as my first point of, I guess, business. But when I realized that there was a thing there was a market, there was actually someone that's saying, okay, I would love your services and I will actually reward you. I will compensate you with money. It's like, okay, maybe I should start to investigate this further. How does that process look for me?
Right.
And it's completely different depending on the field, depending on the craft, even if it's not even a artistic, creative endeavor. If it's something you do on the side, like you fix cars or you do tiling for people, you renovate houses, that looks different in every industry, but the core concept is the same. There's a point where if you believe you're good enough and if the market recognizes you're starting to get good enough, then it's up to you at that point. Do you want to shift it from a hobby?
So when you kind of had that, I guess, realization, or like, this could be something. If people are asking for that, you're starting to see that what you're doing does have value. Did you feel as though you had to give up anything moving into that? Because I feel some people would be like, oh well, if I went into business, if I changed what I did, it's like, oh, it's not going to be the same. I'm not going to get the same, fulfillment and things like that. And people, can, I guess, be discouraged or be just scared.
Yep.
That,
don't want to lose the love.
Yeah, exactly. And, people experience when going into business, some people, from a creative passion into just, doing business, if you do it full time, especially, you have a lot of responsibility there just for yourself. And even more so if you have people that are underneath your care.
Yep.
It's like all that pressure. It's like, oh, you have to make this by that time. I guess some people can be scared when trying to, monetize that. It's like,
oh yeah, it's not easy.
Like, did you feel as though that you had that fear, or was it that you had the confidence after you basically had a look at what was out there, had a look at how to do that? So did you feel like those fears actually came up and then you just subsided them with the research and with the knowledge that you went and found, or what was the process for you?
So how did I navigate the actual transition of turning it into a full-time gig or even a side hustle at the start? Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of one that didn't work out or that I chose not to pursue, and the one that I'm doing currently. So the one that I attempted to, actually there's two things that I did. I did graphic design, and I tried to get people to, I didn't try. People were already asking me because I was doing graphic design work for people. And did I want to pay, could you do a job for me and we'll pay you? And I was like, okay, cool. From knowing nothing about the business side to saying, okay, someone's going to pay me for the graphics, designing flyers, designing a booklet. And in the process of doing that, it didn't take me long in the experience process to go, I actually don't know if I'm willing. I don't know if I'm willing to push my level of craft work, my actual level of ability into a business model in this industry. But it took me actually getting asked to do it and then attempting it, researching how to do it in a graphic design field. And then I looked at the level of competition, like you should do. Because if there's competition in a market, it means that there's demand. Yeah. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Honestly, even this whole thing of over competition is not a bad thing necessarily. It just means people actually want the service to a degree. And then you have to differentiate yourself. And it's at that level for me in the graphic design industry where I went, do I want to differentiate myself? How can I differentiate myself? Am I willing to?
Yeah.
And I ended up, the answer was no. I wasn't willing to invest enough time to stand out.
Right.
So I would be forever relinquished to doing it as a side thing at the very best. If someone approached me for a logo, or I didn't even do logo design, someone approached me for a flyer design, a brochure, then I would possibly say yes, but I was even saying, nah, I probably won't do it. So that was already like one of the indications to me is like, are you willing to get good enough at this to stand out from your competitors in the space? I did this in music as well. So I for the longest time, my first creative passion was music, doing it in singing in church. And even to this day, I still absolutely love it. It's a core element of life. I wouldn't be able to live without playing music throughout my life. It's like one of those things that just caught my being. Then I thought about it in high school. Could I be a musician?
Yeah,
I want to be a musician. I want to go on Australian Idol. I want to go on X Factor. I considered that, and it was crazy because when I hit the ages that I could do it, I actually didn't for a start. Yeah. But then I would go, one day I'll like to do it.
Yeah.
And eventually I started jamming with musicians in Rockhampton and started to know some of the musicians in the scene and be able to do a little bit of we had this event called Off-Key Jams that we would run kind of once a month on the river. It's funny because it was Off-Key Street in Rocky. And then, some of my mates named it Off-Key. It was so smart. And we actually managed to grow that thing. And in the process, I met musicians and I would sing the same cover songs every week in, week out. And I thought, I don't have the drive to pursue this enough to make it monetizable. If you look at the people who are doing it as full-time musicians now, they are willing to get good at their craft. They're willing to learn the guitar chords that I don't want to learn. They are willing to get good at improvisation that I didn't want to do. They're willing to take things to the next level.
Right, yeah.
As part of being able to stand out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I didn't have that drive. To this day, I still don't know some of the advanced chords. Like I have people who I played guitar with and I was like really much better than them years and years ago. Yeah. My cousin Jordan, as an example, and now he would wipe the floor with me literally because I can't keep up. He loves it. He absolutely loves it and he invests his time and you can see it. And is like that's one of the main markers to say, okay, is this going to be something I'm willing to get good enough? Or on the flip side, if you're approaching it from a pure business mindset, getting someone on board who is like that, who is already good enough at that, and then you turn it into a business that way. But I think this podcast, especially, we're approaching it from the side of you are the creative. You are the creative entering business.
So that's a really interesting point. Like having, I guess, a sufficient passion or a sufficient
passion's good
motivation.
It's not everything.
Yeah, absolutely. But having that sufficient energy to be able to even invest and even learn and grow, because like you said, you may have something, but if you're not willing to formulate or differentiate, like all those things, it wouldn't work in business. It wouldn't be something that like absolutely it's just like no.
It's that combination of you standing out and then again, is there an actual market for what you're doing? Because we've joked about it several times about starting things that people might not even care about. So many people trying to get into things that are great in theory and then there's no real market for it. I think you joked in the last podcast, I still listened to it, about painting streets.
Wait, what?
You said that. It was an off comment.
Painting what?
You said something about painting
paint
streets.
The streets. Oh yeah, like painting the bitumen.
And that's like literally, it's a funny example of something that potentially maybe there's not enough of a demand for it.
No, I don't think
there's
so.
people who already do it, but is it enough?
I don't know how I came up with that. That's probably not the best example I could have given.
But the core concept is the same. It's that combination of, are you good enough at your craft? Are you willing to go and differentiate yourself? Are you willing to learn what is involved in turning into a business? And is there a market?
Yeah. No, for sure. What would you say to someone who is having, I guess, those fears of monetizing their work?
Yeah.
And are afraid that what they have at the moment, they're like, this is like their baby. This is like what they love. Like they have their little cove in their house or whatever. What would you say to people who are having fears of taking that in and making it like a monetized thing? Like when they have the fear of whether it will taint the work or whether it will destroy their passion or all those sorts of things, even from your own testimony of how you're doing this thing now, how we're doing this thing now. What would you say to that person?
Cool. Very, very.
Yeah. I guess it's very individualized between, you know, if there's someone who would work well underneath that. But what would you say to someone?
Okay. So there's a second part of going from the graphic design and music industries to now, this is the second part I was going to talk about, which is now video and photography, but primarily video production, where I started doing it because it was fun. And then in the process realized that people wanted it as well. I could do it for others. But now when you do it as a full-time job and you're spending, you know, upwards of 40, 50 hours a week in the space, of course, just like anything, if you don't care for yourself in the process of the love for it and why you're doing it in the first place, of course you can potentially get sick of it. And that's a scary thought if you're, like you said, if you're thinking, I loved what I do now, I am good at it.
You're just in it.
Someone wants it, but I don't want to lose that passion. And I think it's the key word there is obviously passion, and also understanding the fine balance of being able to utilize your skill for the work, but also taking time to do those passion projects. And whatever that is to you, to maintain that love for it. So for example, if we're doing video production and something like what we're doing now, a podcast or something like an interview or testimonials, like they're things that people will want within the corporate commercial space. They'll want videos like that. But I guess if you did that, if your primary love of video wasn't necessarily interviewing people and wasn't necessarily testimonials, wasn't necessarily that, on that level, you look at it at that level, technically you could burn out of your love for video if that was all you did. If all you did was just the sides of video that you didn't necessarily like. But if you had a first love of creating YouTube videos, if you had a first love creating short films, whatever, narrative content, whatever that is, if you are able to still do it, like that, keep that untarnished. Keep that as something that maybe one day it could be monetizable, but maybe for now it's not. And you just keep it as just a pure love thing.
For sure.
I think, like, let me rephrase it this way as well. I heard it said, I can't remember if it was Matt D'Avella or someone else, about something about everyone has a side hustle. Regardless of what you're doing, you always should have a side hustle, because it keeps you in check, so that you're not just focusing all of your energy or your love on one thing. So if that thing in video, like me as an example, for me, my number one attention was my job and my full-time job, and then number two was video. Eventually it's grown to the point where now number two becomes number one. So I no longer have a full-time job, but now video is my main focus, this production company. And so there has to be a number two again to replace what was once that side hustle, whether or not it gets monetizable. So for me, again, that's like a YouTube channel for fun. And I don't know if that's ever going to be monetizable, but that's an outlet. And then number 2 and 3, and then 3 might be something like music, where I have no desire at all to monetize it. I just want to do it. And so that balance, I think, will help someone in creativity to not lose that passion.
No, for sure. Because I think it could be so exhausting. Like, imagine a life where everything you do is for the purpose of monetization. Like, I guess, like,
it's not fun.
I guess it's, the crux of society is like we have to trade and all that sort of stuff. But like having that side thing, and I think like for me as well, like music has sort of been that. Like I'm trying to like grow and learn guitar and all that sort of thing, and it has been that thing where it's like, this is not the thing that I'm going to pursue for my career, but it's the thing that I just want to, when I'm just like stirring inside, I can just do, and I can just get out, and I can just refresh.
What the turning of something a creative into a business does is it puts you accountable to someone else automatically. It puts the pressure of performing on not yourself. It puts it in between yourself and someone else. You're now accountable to whoever you're working for.
Yeah.
So that automatically, I guess, rips out, if you want to call it, the artistic purity or whatever you say, just on that level of you're now working with someone.
Yeah.
Not necessarily you're collaborating with someone, but now it's shared. So it's not necessarily that you get all you want to do. You don't get full control of everything in that situation like you would if you weren't getting paid.
Yeah.
If there was no responsibility. And I think that's the thing. To have something there all the time at all times where it's up to you 100%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's almost as if like in a business or monetized, if you're like you're working for someone, it's almost that act of, I guess, here's the hand, let's say a bucket of water, right? And this is this is you.
Yeah.
And then the creativity is inside the bucket at the bottom. When you're doing it by yourself, there's the creativity at the bottom, the passion at the bottom that bubbles up and then forms something at the top. But maybe in a business setting, when you're working for someone, a hand comes over, grabs in the bucket and tries to pull something out.
And you got to work with that.
Yeah, you got to
additional. Yeah,
you got to. It's basically creativity on demand. Whereas like the passion, you need to let it grow up. Like you need something to be able to release that when you need to release that.
Yeah,
and I feel like for me, I don't know. It's been like for the first 6 months moving down here to Brisbane before I jumped on the team.
Yeah.
I was really needing creative release. Like it was absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I need to do something at all because I was just working and I was doing uni on the side and just living life. And I had no structure. I had no reason like that was pushing me like constantly to create. So I think without greater structure, I guess an encouragement by an environment, whether that is in a business setting, working with you, having you, I guess, not in a completely formalized way, but saying, hey, Nathan, I want you to do this. I want you to do this. I want you to do this.
Yeah.
It has allowed me to be like, oh, it's like, oh yeah, I need to get stuff done. And it's almost as if it's bubbling out like as if it was a passion.
Awesome.
But like because it's just built up for so long. So I think obviously if that scales to forever and ever, there will be times naturally where there's a bit of just a dip in energy or a dip in just creative passion and things like that. But I think it's so important to have that balance between what you let bubble up and just freely bubble up when you need to let it bubble up, and what I guess you allow to take out of that passion bucket or that thing at the bottom as well.
Yeah, leave some things completely to yourself. Like just if you can just allow yourself that freedom to never let everything you do be fully monetized, if that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. That way there's no pressure on those aspects and you can really have fun with it. And who knows, because obviously passions change. Passions change, but your purpose doesn't change, right? So if you can define what that is really deep level, of really define your core purposes in life, and the passions can kind of go around that because they shift. I once had a passion for graphic design that was burning, and it's no longer the same. And who knows whether the same thing will happen in video, but it's just always understanding that, being self-aware as to your limits and to what you're willing to, like you said, sacrifice, and what you're willing to turn monetizable, and what you're happy with just using as your creative outlet. It's a fine balance, but it takes, like you said, it takes doing. It takes actually giving it a shot. You don't know until you only know what you know. Yeah. So you don't know until you try.
Absolutely.
You don't know whether, even if it's a great idea, if you think that you're going to do something like songwriting, a great idea that you're going to start selling paintings. It's all great ideas until the execution. So just do it. Just give it a try and see what happens.
For sure. So no, very good. I think it's just really awesome to be able to bring that, I guess, into a conscious thought of all the different types that, understanding that balance of what is taken out of you and what you're letting bubble up. And I think, it's so cool. Like I just want to it's so cool that even creating stuff and, being creative and like that can be something that is absolutely desirable
That's amazing.
Like that can be a thing. That can be a thing that I guess that makes sense. Carpenters and blacksmiths and back in the day, like they probably had an awesome passion for that.
Changed,
but I guess it has changed in the fact that people want to buy art and all that sort of stuff, and it's like way back in the day, like primitive maybe, like selling art wasn't really the biggest of things.
We can dig into the history and psychology, but when it's like the hierarchy of needs, and if your core needs were just survival, as to now you have a whole heap of needs to fulfill now with all modern change in lifestyle and whatnot, and art is core to it now. I mean, honestly, art's always been
art is the cornerstone of culture.
Yeah. So it's always had a place. It just so happens that now I feel like it's definitely taking precedence in the, I guess if we're talking in the business world, a lot more than it ever has.
For sure.
It's exciting.
Absolutely. Well, with that, don't stop having a passion, people. We live in a world where, creativity is so valuable and people want it. People want it to be in all things, because I think it's the most effective thing that speaks to people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really awesome that we could have a conversation surrounding that one. I guess as a last point, what would you say would be for someone who's seeking and wants to learn, like going back to what you were saying before, wants to get better, wants to be, really hone in their craft and really ticking all the boxes. If that's what they want, what are some practical steps that they can take to make that come about in what they're doing?
Yep. Okay. The number one thing that I would say is to find people who are already doing it that or at least even if it's not an exact industry, are very similar, and just ask for a start. Just honestly, don't be scared to put yourself out there. Don't be scared to ask to do free projects for people, but also as on a side, like, that's all good to actually go and practically advertise your services and get it for free. But if you can also find someone who's gone and already been doing it and start to even ask them to mentor you in a way, or catch up with them over coffee, ask them what they did to start it. And then if you don't have access to someone necessarily, that's what social media is for. And that's what YouTube is for, because I guarantee you there's the vast majority of creative industries out there's someone on YouTube talking about their journey in starting and what they would do to start.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and that's what I did and am doing. I still follow people who are years ahead of where we are now, so that we have a pathway to follow, even if it's not the exact same one, to see what they've done in actually practically doing it. Because there's, like you said, when you do and like we said, when you do start to monetize your craft, there are things there that you have to learn. There's practical things you have to learn about how to make this. It's got to be viable. So how are you going to charge? Yeah. You got to find that out. What services are you going to actually provide? Are you going to, sell products? Are you going to sell services? Are you going to sell both? Are you going to make packages? Are you going to do it custom, value-based pricing? Do you have set prices? How are you going to manage clients? And this is all stuff that at the moment I feel like maybe we have a core understanding, and we're learning as well. Yeah. We're learning this as we're going. And so there's always room for improvement. And I think at the very start, if you can already start to just gather as much information, and I would definitely recommend, outside of knowing people directly, I would recommend YouTube University. Yeah. That is how I gained 90% of my practical knowledge outside of learning how to use the camera and stuff. And there's also, just so happens to be a lot of material there in getting practically better at your craft. So if you can do that, and actually at the end of the day, not just consume, but do it, you're already miles ahead of people who are just thinking about it. You will be miles ahead of where you were if you just take one step. It's simple, at least to get the ball rolling, and then the onus is on you, and there's always community out there. Just don't ever feel like you're alone. There will be communities. If it's not local, there will be communities on social media to just keep yourself accountable and have people to fall back on and to ask for help and all that stuff.
No, for sure.
Build a network and keep learning.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
Awesome. I think that's really a great way to end today's podcast.
Alrighty. Thank you for watching, basically catching up with us here on the Brown Fox podcast. If you have, something that you'd like to comment, we would be, more than happy to hear your feedback down in the comments there. But yeah, we'll catch you next time. Thank you for your time. Thank you for setting some time aside to give us your attention. It's much appreciated. Have a good day, guys.
Have a great day. Fox is out.
Cool.